Hello, Elegant Marketplace and Facebook Divi Theme Users Group. I've got the greatest pleasure now. I'm going to introduce you to the co-founder of WordPress. He's a chap called Mike Little, and he lives in Manchester, or near Manchester, in the north of England. And I had the great pleasure of meeting him at WordCamp London. Over to you, Mike. Give a little introduction of who you are, where you are, and why.
Hi, so thank you for that introduction. Yeah, I'm Mike Little. I'm the co-founder of WordPress. So I started WordPress just over 15 years ago with Matt Mullenweg, who at the time was in Houston. Yeah, I'm a full-time WordPress developer. I work part-time for a company called Human Made, and also work with my own company, Z1. And yeah, WordPress is the thing that I do.
So how do you feel about the fact that WordPress powers 30% of the internet and you co-founded it?
Humbled. It's astonishing. Something that genuinely started as a couple of guys who'd never met, working, talking over the internet, who decided to fork a piece of software that they were both using, along with a couple of thousand other people, no more than that, to turn into what it has now. As you say, powering 30% of the internet, providing or creating a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's just astonishing. As I say, I'm always quite humbled by just how big it's grown. And I always have to say, WordPress is so wonderful because of the people that came after me. It's a huge community, and together we've produced this thing that is the WordPress world.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. Are you still involved in the WordPress development aspect of it, or involved in automatic?
So I'm not generally involved in the development. I do contribute the occasional patch, report bugs, and so on. I think about 2 releases ago, I was quite surprised to find my name was listed in the contributors for that release, because I couldn't remember something that I'd done, but it turned out it was a patch I'd submitted. I think it was like a year before or something like that. I'd finally got put into the code. So very occasionally, as time allows, I'd love to have more time to contribute to core, but mostly my contribution is kind of more on the training side, on the community side. I run a local meetup and so on, but I'm not involved in automatic at all.
Any reason for that?
I was never asked. Back when Matt started his company, 2005, I think it was. It was a very small thing at the time, and yeah, just ended up never getting directly involved in that. At the time, I had a full-time job, software developer, and it still seemed like this WordPress thing was a sideline, was a hobby. Little did I know how big it would grow.
Yeah, but it's just, I suppose it's one of those things, the reason I'm in business with my particular partner is because, we met online and we've managed to form Elegant Marketplace and, layoutscloud.com, and form up a community. We've got nearly, I think it's 28,000 members in our Divi Theme Users Facebook group. And what gets me about the whole WordPress community and the Divi theme community that we've got and we're part of is the free contribution that a load of people make, including us. We give away lots of free stuff and lots of free advice.
Yeah. So
when you're approached for WordPress development or training, I mean, what do people feel about, I'm dealing with the guy that actually built WordPress, maybe he'll solve all my problems. Is that what you get?
Not so much directly. On the training side, people are sometimes quite excited that, as a co-founder of WordPress, that I'm the person that's teaching them, and genuinely see the value in that. On the development side, it's kind of probably a mixture actually. When people, so some people approach me, have no idea that I'm the co-founder, and normally it's not something I directly raise, to be honest. Other times, yeah, some people will approach me knowing fully well who I am, and obviously coming to me thinking that I'm going to be the best solution for what they're looking for. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixture. I don't particularly blow my own trumpet. It's not something that I particularly kind of push to people. I know that frustrates a number of friends and colleagues, and I'm a little bit better at it than I used to. I mention it on my website now, which I never used to do.
And on your business cards as well. It's a very small type. Yeah. I promise that I'd redesign your business cards, and I will do that. But it doesn't surprise me. I'm lucky enough, as I say, to have met you, spent some time with you over coffee and a cake at WordCamp London. And you are very humble, and I get that you're humble. But actually, most of the people, well, one would hope that most of the people that I've met in the WordPress community are also humble. They're kind of proud of what they do. They're contributors. There's only 65 people that can actually say, yes, this can go into core, that sort of thing. But they're dealing with, 15,000 contributors, 20,000 contributors?
Oh, easy. Yeah. I mean, each individual release has 200 or 300 names to it. And yeah, I think you're right. I think as a tech community, and initially, WordPress has always been at the heart of it, a tech community. I think we do really well. I think we do well in that it isn't completely tech focused. The value of non-tech contribution is very, very much recognized. I think we do well at being quite a diverse community compared to some tech communities. And yeah, you're right. I think there are some big egos, but not that many. And they seem to be taken with a pinch of salt. I think. The bulk of people in the WordPress community are really genuinely good-minded members of that community and contribute to it in any way that they can.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed about you, certainly at WordCamp London, was that you actually did a course, or you did a session with kids, teaching kids how to program, or looking at the WordPress core, looking at PHP. And so how do you see your development on that kind of things, teaching kids to code? It's big in schools in the UK, I know, but for you to be a major contributor is a pretty good thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So actually, the one that I did at WordCamp London was actually not coding, but it was just introducing the kids to WordPress. So it was a classroom full of primary school kids, and just taking them through actually using WordPress.com to create their first WordPress site, which was awesome. Anyway, one interesting thing that I realized kind of a few minutes into starting that session was that all of those kids were younger than WordPress itself.
Which was 2003, I think.
Yeah, so they were all primary school kids, so they were all under 11.
Crazy.
And so yeah, that was a little bit crazy. Yeah, teaching kids to code is something I'm really enthusiastic about. I've done a number of different projects in that, whether it's WordPress related or not. So I used to work with the Young Rewired State when that was going. So I was fortunate enough to mentor, I think, 3 years with that, and also I was fortunate to be a judge in the kind of the end of that week-long event on a couple of occasions, which was really awesome and quite humbling as well. And yeah, a few other things. I've been part of hackathons and things like that, whether contributing, mentoring, or judging. Yeah, I think it's great that kids get to learn to code. They need to understand that they're not passive consumers of the web. They're not passive consumers of their devices in their hands, and that they can make a difference. They can create their own websites. They can have a voice on the internet. They can create apps. They can create games. And it's yeah, I think it's really, really important. It's something that we need to just do more of. People need to understand that yeah, they're not passive consumers. They're not fodder in, Facebook's money-making machine,
Yeah.
and that they can have their own voice and have some power on.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think through the certainly through the Facebook group, I would say that 40% of the membership of the Facebook group are not developers.
Mm-hmm.
They may be a designer that's got decided that, oh yes, I can develop because Diggy theme is great. On WordPress.org, you've got thousands of themes that you can download, some premium, some not. And everybody is capable of building their own website. We've got the Wixes, we've got the Weebly's, we've got Adobe now taken over Magento as of Thursday for 1.6 billion. And I think what people see is the vast amount of money. Automatic, worth an awful lot of money. You've got Elegant Themes. They've got 480,000, 500,000 customers. You've got Elementor Page Builder. It's already 800,000 downloads of the page builder. And now we've got another page builder coming along, which I'm just going to, I think it begins with G. That would be Gutenberg, I think. So, how do you feel? How do you, as the WordPress co-founder, feel about Gutenberg and the impact that it's going to have on both positive and negative on the development world, let's
say? It's a big thing. Gutenberg is a really big, ambitious project. I think that it has got a way to go yet. As I think, as we've seen, deadlines have moved. To be honest, from what I understand of it, I haven't looked for a couple of weeks now, and I know it's moving rapidly. That things will change every week. I think it's got a long way to go, particularly on the accessibility side of things. As to the impact on WordPress, I think lots of people will love it. One of the things that slightly concerns me, maybe, is that, like page builders, Gutenberg seems to be mostly about setting up your site, which sure is the big thing that people think about. But actually the best sites are long-lived, and they are things that develop continually. And one of the things that I don't think long-term most people will do is build pages from scratch over and over again. What they want is a site that fulfills their needs, that looks good, that has the core content that they want on there, whether that's promoting their business, their scout group, their local church, their charity, whatever it might be. But then for a real living site that's going to have some long-term value, they need to be adding new content. And I think they need to be adding that new content in a way that's easy and convenient, like current WordPress is, and not in a way that requires them to construct a page with drag and drop for every new piece of content that they do. Media companies and newspapers and magazines, online magazines, they need to construct pages every single day with blocks and drag and drop and all the rest of it. But the majority of us want to click new post, type some words in. Sure, drag an image in and place it is nicer than the current media library type thing. But yeah, I think any page builder, Gutenberg, which currently is going to be, is a content builder, not so much a page builder, anything like that, I think needs to be able to get out of the way when it needs to. And I think that's important. And I think that flow of just creating a new page in its simplest form with a couple of paragraphs, an image and a link, or whatever it's going to be, still needs to work, and needs to work seamlessly and beautifully and easily. So I think Gutenberg's got to get to that point. After it's got all the fancy stuff out of the way, it needs to make sure that simplest ease of use has got to be there. From the development side of things, though, it's got to have a huge impact, simply because it works so very differently from anything currently in WordPress in terms of the JavaScript knowledge required, the particular library that have chosen, React. I think it's one of the good ones. I don't know enough about it and its alternatives as to whether it's 100% the perfect choice. I think it's a good enough choice. It's a solid library. It has you know, a good structure to it, but it's a big step up. It's a big learning curve from anybody who's done current WordPress development, that's for sure.
It is, I agree. And we've got, you know, the Divi theme, obviously, which we focus on, and Elementor as well, obviously, and other page building, you know, site origin, but mainly Elegant Marketplace is involved in Divi layouts and child themes and plugins. And one of the things that we've had to come to terms with over, and our vendors have had to come to terms with over the past few years, is that Divi is built on, the front end builder is built on React, and the back end builder isn't. So, you know, I'm sure that will change.
Yeah.
You know, the back end builder will inevitably have to go, you know, be based on React as well. But what that means is that the vendors that have built the modules and the plugins and the themes on their, based on their PHP knowledge, are going to have to learn a you know, React.js. So it's that kind of quantum leap, really. It is, you know, I'm not exaggerating when it's a quantum leap, because it is, the PHP is actually what it is. It's quite easy. You know, you've got hooks to deal with, you've got all sorts of things that you can learn. And the WordPress Codex gives you an unbelievable library of resources for PHP. And the library of resources for React is just not there yet. It's a real learning curve. And I was talking to people at WordCamp who specialize now in React, and they're charging a fortune because they know what they're doing, but it also takes a little while longer to develop in React. And, you know, there's a lot of testing environments that you've got to check it. So, you know, I think your points are valid. You know, anything built on a new, but basically anything built on a new technology that has got to marry itself to an older technology, i.e. the WordPress core, PHP, MySQL, all that kind of stuff, we are going to see some reactions. God, I hate myself for being a dad. But anyway, proper dad joke there. But the point is that we are going to see some strong language in the forum saying, what the hell is going on? And, you know, I think you alluded to when we had our pre-conversation, is that there is actually a WordPress plugin in the WordPress repository now, which I will link in the blog post that accompanies this, that you can turn off Gutenberg.
Yay! Yeah.
If you really want to. So
and I think that, I mean, that's inevitable that something like that would be there. And that's good, actually, and it shows a couple of things. One, it shows that that WordPress is that flexible, that it is possible to turn off WordPress itself. It also shows that from the beginning, I mean, the fact that it's still a plugin is significant. Actually, it's the best way that it could have been developed, but it also means. It also shows that it's using WordPress's own standard functionality to meld itself in there, which then means, of course, it can, of course, be turned off. And even when it makes itself into core, I think initially that still will be the case, that it can be turned off. Eventually, maybe it'll be so intertwined with core that it won't be possible to turn it off. I'm not sure. I think that's a long way off. But I think going back to the development side of thing, I think the biggest problem with Gutenberg, actually with any of the major JavaScript interfaces that are built into WordPress, is the complete lack of documentation.
Yeah.
There are some nice React courses available, not necessarily directly WordPress related. Some are, but some aren't, that are quite good and show you the overall view of React. But they all seem to treat React as a standalone environment, which of course it can be. What I found is that how to use WordPress's implementation of React is really poor, and that's true of the previous JavaScript interfaces that have been put in there. So the media library is all JavaScript based now, and the documentation on that is horrendous. There's almost nothing, and what there is really vague. And so what you end up with, just like I know from doing development training for WordPress, the whole hook system at first seems almost like magic. how on earth is my code that I've just written getting called? I don't understand how that works. Where is it being called? And it feels like magic until you see the hook system explained. And there's loads of documentation, there's loads of tutorials on how to do actions and filters. And the JavaScript side is almost at that same magic level, is how on earth does this stuff get called, and how do the different bits of it get called? And there isn't yet any decent documentation that I can see. And that's going to be a problem.
Is this because WordPress and the surrounding communities, JavaScript communities, React, whatever language you're using, is community based? So therefore somebody goes out and says, well, I can make this do this, but I'm not going to, I can't, it's going to take me longer to write documentation than it did for me to make this JavaScript plugin or to make this work in JavaScript. So is it a question of CBA? I can't really be bothered to write the documentation, just have a look at it and implement it and it's fine? Or is it a question that because WordPress is such a large community, there is no control on who controls the documentation?
I think it's a little bit of both. There isn't really any control as such, but there is a dedicated volunteer group who work on documentation. I think the bulk of them, or the main players, aren't necessarily developers. But I think the biggest issue is not so much that it's that people can't be bothered. I think it's people haven't seen the need. The problem, I think, comes from if you are knowledgeable enough and involved enough to contribute to something like Gutenberg. It's really hard to see that. To even think back to when you didn't know what React was or didn't know how WordPress's implementation of React. And that's the biggest problem, because people will point, oh yeah, there's loads of React documentation, there's loads of React tutorials. But that isn't enough, because it's how WordPress happens to have implemented and meshed with React. So probably for the first few months of reading about Gutenberg, seeing how Gutenberg was progressing, looking at some examples of Gutenberg running, I didn't know that it was using the REST API under the hood.
Right.
And it's like, it's that kind of thing. So not only is it using the REST API, how is it using the REST API? How are the structures being built? How does it interact with that old PHP code that is still there and still got to be used and will still potentially need new code written around it? And again, there's a whole focus on the JavaScript side of things, but in order for the JavaScript stuff to do things and to actually store in the database or retrieve data, it's still got to interact with the PHP code. So there's a whole bunch of documentation missing. Yeah. Sorry, say again.
So where are those API calls coming from? How do you get hold of those APIs? And that's the key, I think, with any kind of plugin, if you like, because Gutenberg is a plugin currently now.
Yeah.
Where does it get its information from, and how does it present it? And I think that's the key with all development. I'm going to stop you there because we can go on for days about it.
Oh yeah.
my key point is that with documentation, it's very important for us as mere mortals. I'm not a PHP programmer. I can kind of find my way around PHP. If I know there's an error, I can do a bug fix or something like that. But I'm not a programmer, and I don't intend to become a programmer or a developer. What I want to know is how all this lovely development of page builders and Gutenberg being a page builder, because it is, let's call it what it is, it's a page builder, how that's going to affect the community that we alluded to earlier on, which is the kids, the stay-at-home moms, the stay-at-home dads, the teenagers that want to build their own website and get themselves out there. How's that going to affect them? And do you think it will increase their productivity, if you like, apart from the fact that they will have to literally build every page from scratch unless we get some kind of custom post type situation into Gutenberg and we can just pull in a CPT and say, okay, well, there's all that Gutenberg stuff, and all I need to add is my text and my image, and that'll be done. How do you think it's going to affect them?
So I think there's kind of two sides to it. One is the kind of ordinary WordPress user The person who is never going to look at code, never going to get into code, doesn't need to understand it. They're just going to use WordPress. They're going to add a couple of plugins to add to give them features. They're going to add a theme to make it look good. It is going to affect them. It's going to affect the way that they work, but it just needs to work for them. It needs to be intuitive, and an awful lot of getting some good stuff out of WordPress has not been intuitive, and it's part of the reason behind tools like Gutenberg and the page builders and so on. So, at the end of the day, the usability is the most important thing. Is it easily usable? Is it easily discoverable? And that's one of the good things that's going to come out of Gutenberg, I think, is that being able to actually figure out that you can do this. You can drop in a video. You can put an image in and have it over there. You can just throw in headings and so on and arrange the content. That's going to be good. That's going to be a big improvement. And so I think that's important for people who only care about WordPress as a tool. It's almost, I remember, a good few years ago at one of the State of the Word talks, Matt talked about WordPress almost becoming the operating system of the web. The idea that people who want to do something on the web will just use WordPress because that's what everybody does. If we hit 30%, 40%, 50%, it's almost like, we all have a TV, we turn it on, it works, we can flick through and see the programs, but hardly any of us know how that works anymore. And that's okay. It becomes a commodity. It just becomes, and it has, if it can get to that, then that's going to be awesome. That is just going to be, you do stuff on the web. It happens to be WordPress under the hood, but you don't care. You don't even know what WordPress is. You're just building a website.
Most of our clients don't care how a website is built. They just want it to work, and they don't ever want to be hacked. My final point, and it's a yes or no, and I'm not going to let you answer anything else on Gutenberg. My final point on Gutenberg. Given that there are so many page builders out there already that are doing a great job, the growth of Elementor, 800,000 downloads in a year, Divi Theme, Beaver Builder, I don't want to leave anybody out. There's loads of page builders out there. Is Gutenberg necessary?
Yes.
That's it.
And I can explain that if you want, but yes, at the end of the day, it is, yes.
No need to go any further. I just wanted a yes or no. Now, I don't want to take up too much of time. I know you're busy and you've had some issues sorting out some websites and everything. I want to know whether you're going to be online as a teacher, whether you're going to do any courses online, whether you think you can add any value to do, this is Mike Little, WordPress co-founder, here's how to use WordPress, here's how to structure your site, or are you going to do any online courses? And if you are, I definitely need to know, because I'm going to put some people on.
I've always intended that. That's been one of my goals for the last couple of years. What I've come to understand, as I think many do who do it well, is that it's hard work to actually produce video courses and so on. I did see one quote that said something like an hour of production time to produce a minute of on-screen time. So yeah, it's just finding the time. It's getting down to it. The classroom courses that I run now, I absolutely love them. I'm still getting really, really awesome feedback from them. People really appreciate them. So I know that there's a value there. Turning into an online course, it's just finding the time. It's there. I want to do it. Yeah, one day, hopefully soon.
So where are you? Are you in Serbia? In Europe? Are you going to Serbia, or you haven't got time?
I'm not at the moment, and it's fast approaching, so I may not end up there. But I'm looking at definitely going to be Manchester, which I think is going to be late October now, or mid to late October. I see Edinburgh. I think they just announced a date, so I might try and make that as well.
I'm off to Serbia, so
okay.
If you want to come, just give me a bell, because I've got a 4-bedroom apartment out there. So you've been joined by a brilliant developer, a brilliant PHP guy, Jonathan Bossinger. He's joining me, and we're going to have some fun out in Serbia. doing the work.
Yeah, I have a feeling I've got another date very, very close to it, which is why I've not jumped at it. But yeah, I'm gonna.
Anyway, these things are a trek. What I'm looking to do is obviously meet up with WordPress developers, because we as a business are moving into more WordPress as well. You know, it's not theme builders. So, you know, I want to press the flesh with developers that are theme developers and WordPress plugin developers on the commercial side, because we're very, very lucky. We've got a tight community. You know, most of the people in the community like us, which is great. You know, we've obviously got some competitors, and we just try and get along with as many people as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted you here, is because I saw you at WordCamp London, and I saw how a community officer, if you like, works. You are 100% approachable. You're never, nothing. There's no such thing as a stupid question. You spend time with people. I noticed you spent time with a person that I was trying to get into talk to you, and this person was going on about something and really needed your help and your advice on it, and you gave so much time. So I admire you for that. So finally, I'm going to say thank you on behalf of the community for saying hi to us today. It's really, really, it is an honor. You know, it's not sycophantic or anything, Mike. You are the co-founder of WordPress. Without you, you know, my customers wouldn't have websites that are easy to build, much more cost effective to build, and obviously function well. And the community that I'm in, you know, the whole Divi Nation community wouldn't have WordPress as the foundation to put on the Divi theme and Elementor and Beaver Builder and all these page builders. Yeah. So, you know, from us, genuinely, thank you. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome. As I say, it is the community as a whole, and I think everybody should, even if they don't, it's great if everybody can realize that they are part of a community and help everybody else out. One of the things that I say regularly at my meetup is that when people go, oh, I'm a beginner, I don't know anything. If you know one more thing than somebody else who started the day after you, and you can give them that answer, then you've contributed to that community and you've made the WordPress world a little bit better. And that's always it. You're always going to be one step ahead of someone. And if you can help that someone move one step further, you've contributed to the community. And that's why this community is so good.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. Goodbye.
You're very welcome. Thank you.